All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and this morning's video is one of several I'm going to hope to get done over the weekend. But we'll be making a ID lanyard or an ID holder, and then the lanyard will be a different video. This one was just kind of thrown together to make sure that my template was good and accurate. Anyway, we've got a clear window right here in the front. And then on the back, we've got a couple of slots here that you could fold up some cash and stick in, or for a bank card or whatever. We'll talk about different options for the little hangy thingy right here. But this is prototype one. This is the first one that I kind of figured out. But there's several different options for how to hang this. But this one will be the one that we show in this video, but we'll talk about a couple of others later. So that being said, just like all of our videos, this is about one of our templates that we've done. You don't have to have the template to make this. It's not difficult to figure out the pattern. The template just makes it way faster and easier. It's got three pieces to it. This is the middle piece right here. It's in between the front and the back. This is the ID window. I'm going to go ahead and send out this piece with it, which is what we cut out of the ID window when we made the template, but it just can help you do small straight edges and stuff like that. I'm going to use it. I'll show you how I use it here in a little bit. And then here is the back piece. It's got two card slots, just like our billfolds and roper wallet and stuff like that. And then it's got two lines drawn down here. In this pattern, we didn't have a big enough thing to do the square to show people where to draw their line at the bottom. So we just kind of put a couple of lines down there to show. And again, when we get to that part of the video, you'll see what I'm even talking about if you hadn't watched any of our wallet videos before. Anyway, all of these things could be made from anything from 2 to 5 ounces of leather. I'm going to use 2 to 3 ounce russet tooling leather on this entire project. You could use, like I said, anything up to say 5 ounce, but you got to be warned that it's going to get pretty thick, being 3 layers thick. If you're using say 4 to 5 ounce times 3, you're talking about 12 to 15 ounces total of leather once it's all sewn together. So anyway, we're going to start out with the hardest part of it, which is cutting out the ID window. Okay, and real simple to begin with, but then once you get to the actual window part of it, it can get a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to take my template and I'm going to set it down here on my leather, and I'll cut around it with my scalpel. Now, on a lot of these pieces, I rounded the sorry, I'm gonna have to move the camera down. I forgot the video's not about me, it's about what I'm doing. So I rounded the corners on a lot of the template pieces. However, a lot of the time I'll just go ahead and cut that straight as if that corner wasn't already rounded, and then I'll just round one of the pieces, you know, and then when I sew the whole thing together or glue the whole thing together, I'll trim those rounded corners. That way all of them match up the same way. Okay, center it a little bit more on the project. Bring the project a little bit more to light. Okay, so I'm going to take my handy dandy scalpel here, and I'm going to cut out this piece. Now I've already got this side lined up with a straight edge that was already on the leather, so I'm only cutting the other sides. All right. Get this out of the way for now. We'll use it when we go to cut out our other two pieces. I'm going to rotate this a little bit so that folks can see. And again, on this bottom here, instead of rounding those two corners, I'm just going to go straight across with them. And when I glue it all up, I will round all the corners at once because it just makes it easier, and they're going to match up a lot better. Okay. So there we have it. There's our little rectangle. If you look at this piece of the pattern, there's a line drawn right across the top. Let's see if I can get some better light on it. There we go. There's a line drawn across the top. That's going to be a fold line, okay? And that'll all come into play when we go to put the clear window material in it. All right. So I'm going to get my punching board here. And this is how I cut out these windows. You know, there's a million ways to skin the cat. I've talked about that on just about every video I've made. But this is the way I skin my cat. So what I'm going to do is grab a sizable round punch here, okay? One that's about the same radius as those little corners right there. This one is, I guess, right at about a 1/2 inch punch. I'm going to hold my template as still as I can, and I'm going to punch those 4 corners. Punches need sharpening. There's no doubt about that. They've been working hard for 15, 16 years, and I don't believe I've ever sharpened them. Alright, so there's 3 of them. Now we're going to punch our 4th one here. Okay, now assuming you did all that right in the corners like it ought to be, what I'm going to do to make this easier is I am going to use that little piece that we're just going to leave in the template sets, and I'll just line it up with the corners of those holes, and I'll take my scalpel and I'll cut straight across there. And that will help you cut this sucker out nice and straight. And I'll do it again over here. All right, last side, and then we'll see how it looks. Now, when you're cutting this from hole to hole, be really careful with your scalpel, because when you get to that last hole, if you got too much angle on your blade or whatever, you could drag it straight across and cut the top part of the hole that you're not wanting to cut, and it just is going to be unsightly, and it won't make for a nice finished product. So there it is. I did a pretty good job of making it look like there's not, you know, holes punched and lines cut, you know, like as if there was, you know, basically you don't want to see things like this on your finished project. But anyway, let me get some more light down here. Sorry. All right, so I did a pretty good job of it. Now we can take a small edge beveler and bevel these edges and everything, and we probably will before we get to putting this thing together. It'll just make a nice cleaned up appearance. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the other 2 pieces, which this is the middle piece here. The only thing it's got to worry about is it's got a hole right here in the center of the top, and that hole is more for just marking, like, okay, you know, we don't know yet how we're going to attach it. Like I said, there's many different ways that we can attach that something to hold the lanyard to it. One way, the one I did here, is it does have a Chicago screw in it, and so that's what I marked this hole for. The other way would be we just put a little piece like that on there and then stitch it in when we stitch the whole thing together. Let's see if I can get some more focus on all this. So anyway, other than that, it's just a big rectangle. And again, I'm going to cut it straight out, and I'm not going to worry about the rounded corners or anything while I cut it. I know my leather's in my way here. Let me see if I can find something heavy to hold it down for me. Use my wing dividers there. All right. Okay, so there's the middle piece cut out, and then we'll go ahead and cut out the card pocket for the back. Okay. And I will cut out the piece first, and then I'll bring back up my punching board, and I'll punch my slots and cut out my card slots. Very imperative when you're using any of these templates that you hold them down nice and still when you're cutting. Get this piece out of the way again. There's more where it can be seen. Excuse the noise. The dog is getting comfortable in his box right under my desk. He's got a little cardboard box down there that he just goes and lays in when he wants to hang out. All right, so I'm going to get my punching board back up here. Grab me a punch that's the appropriate size for those little holes. All right, and I know I've mentioned this on several videos, and I'm going to mention it again on this one, but when punching these holes, you need to make sure you have a hole punch that will go all the way in there without being too large for the template. I mean, all these things have a bevel to them, and you know, we get calls that, oh, I used one that, you know, it looked like it fit, but then I cracked my template when I went to use it. So you need to have a punch that's small enough that you can punch through without it cracking your template. If you don't have a punch small enough to do that, then while your leather is on, or your template is on your leather, just go ahead and take a stylus or something and mark your holes, and then remove the template, punch your holes, then go back and cut your lines. Okay. So we got 4 holes to punch here. We do that, and then we cut our 2 lines in between them. Beautiful, just like it ought to be. All right, I'm gonna pause the camera and clean off this stuff, grab some different stuff, and then we'll be right back. All right, so what we're gonna go ahead and do is create our card pockets. If you've watched any of our other wallet and billfold videos, you're already familiar with this concept. We're going to use this black Tyvek. I know it sounds redundant, but for anybody that hadn't watched those other videos, you can use fabric, you can use ribbon, you can use all kinds of stuff, but I like using the Tyvek. Reason being is because it is it's really, really thin, so it's not going to add a lot of bulk to the center of your project. When fabric and ribbon, once you get 4 or 5 layers of it in there, it can get kind of thick. So we're going to use that. We're going to use double-sided sticky tape. We need a ink pen. I had one somewhere. There it is. We need an ink pen, and then we need our template that has those 2 lines at the bottom down there. Okay, and I'm going to pull the paper off this this template. All of our templates and rulers and stuff that we make out of our blue acrylic, you can pull this paper off the back, and then you can see through it. And that just helps a lot. All right. So I'm hoping that that would help us to see the lines at the bottom, but it didn't. Anyway, there are 2 very lightly scribed lines here. I promise in person they're not difficult to see at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over my card slot piece. All right. Because I'm going to mark on the back of it with an ink pen. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my slots and holes at the top. And then where these lines are at the bottom, I'm just going to make me a little dash out here to the side where each of those lines are. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Line up where my holes and my cuts are on the top. And again, put some little dashes down here at the bottom. And then I'll just use this template as a straight edge, and I'm going to draw me a line straight across there. All right, now to put the Tyvek on the back of this, we're going to need 5 pieces of double-sided tape. All right, each of them approximately the length of one of those lines, one of those cuts. All right, so basically the width of a card. I have a lot of people asking, you know, oh, is the double-sided tape, is that really going to stand up to the test of time? And, you know, is that going to hold up? And well, yeah, it is. I've been making wallets like this for years, and I've never had a failure yet as far as a card pocket failing or anything. And I mean, even in my personal wallet, like I've, you know, gone through a river or fallen in a pond or who knows what might have happened. But I mean, I've had wallets that were completely submerged in water, stuff like that. And then after they dried out, yeah, they might have been a little stiff, but the card pockets held up well. So if your concern is that you don't think it's going to be strong enough and you like doing separate card pockets and cutting all those pieces out, then I mean, hey, go for it. You know, whatever floats your boat. But if you're just worried that these aren't strong enough, then I promise you they are. I even told one lady, because she wanted to buy the template, but she was concerned about that, and I said, hey, if you make it that way and one of the pockets fails, I will buy that wallet from you. And then I will go ahead and pay for the customer's replacement as well. So far, she has not called. So, I mean, she ordered it, but she didn't call back. Anyway, all right, so we need to take this tape, and we have to put one piece directly under each of the cuts. And then we have to put one piece directly above the bottom line. And then we're going to put one piece up here at the top. Okay? That's how we start our prep work. So there's one piece directly under the top cut, one piece directly under the bottom cut, one piece directly above the drawn line, the bottom drawn line, and one piece at the very top up here. This is going to be where the Tyvek ends when we're done. All right, so we will start with taking the back side of the tape off of the bottom cut line. We work our card pockets from the bottom one up to the top one. And what I do is I'll take my Tyvek and I'll lay it where it's nice and perpendicular to the lines, the cuts, and I'll just lay it right across that piece of tape there. Smush it down good against that tape, get a good adheration. And then I fold it back to the point that it's right at the top of that tape, and I get a nice crease right there. Okay, once I've done that, I will remove the backing off of the bottom piece of tape, and I'm going to lay this as nice and flat as I can against the leather, all the way down across it. Press it down good. I'm going to fold it back up, and once again, I'm going to get me a nice little crease here. And there we go. We have now created the bottom card pocket. So on to the next one. We've got our crease down here, so we're going to remove the piece of tape off of the top cut. Okay, and we'll just lay this Tyvek back across that one. Lay it nice and flat, get good adheration there. I think that's a word. I don't know. I keep using it. All right, now, the second line, the top line that we drew up here, we need to put another piece of tape on the back of that other piece of Tyvek, but directly above that line. Okay? Just like that. All right, and again, I'm holding this upside down right now. The card cuts are on this end. So it's directly above that second drawn line, okay? So we're going to take and we'll crease this back down even with the tape once again. All right, we'll lay it down across that piece. We'll once again create us a fold just even with that line. Okay, and we'll go back up. We'll take off this top piece of the backing off the top piece of tape, lay it across it, and we're done. It was nice and quick. It took probably 16 inches of Tyvek, and I'm just going to cut it off pretty much even with that top piece of tape up there. Now we're done with our Tyvek. We can put the rest of it away for another project. I'm going to pause this. The dog is really scratching up his box down there. I think he got his t-shirt out that he lays on and he can't get it back in there. So I'm going to help the dog right quick. All right. Poor little bear down there. He's just, I don't know, playing. So, that's it on this piece until final assembly, I guess. We've created our card pockets, and so we'll set this piece aside. And we're going to go back to our window piece, and we're going to put the clear window in this. This really is a fairly quick project, and it also is a pretty easy, like it's easy to make out of small amounts of scrap leather. I mean, to make this whole project, you need some leather that's 3 inches wide and about 15 inches long, and that's it. So, I mean, you don't need a ton of leather to make one of these, but yet they could be a fun and profitable project. So, once again, I need to reset, just grab a couple of different things. We'll talk about clear plastic window material, and we'll get started. All right, so I grabbed a Ron's Tools number 1 Montana Edger, and I'm just going to do a little bit of edge work here on this little bitty window. I think this thing measures like 1/64 of an inch cut or something. I mean, it's just something crazy tiny for this little bitty 2-ounce leather here. I am going to round the edges and I'll do a real quick burnish on them. Very, very lightly, because there's just no need to do a ton of burnish. All I'll do is make it look ugly. I'm only going to do the front side. I don't want to do the back side because I want this to lay flat against the plastic. I don't want it rounded under where it could catch, dirt and stuff like that. So, yeah, grab my Ron's edge rub back here and my piece of canvas. And again, I'm just going to do a teeny tiny bit of burnishing. I'm not going to do very much at all, because the more I screw with it, the more likely I am to screw it up, and then you'll just have dark spots on the outside of your leather that are undesirable. I'll do 2 sides at a time. Just basically trying to smooth out any little fuzzies that might be there. All right, now the other 2 sides. Come in from the back side, and I'm less likely to screw up the finished side of the leather here. All right, so rub those down a little bit. There we are. Get this up out of the way for now. We will use it when we do our final construction and stuff, of course. The trash out of the way. Okay, now applying the clear window. Let's talk about the clear window here. There's a lot of different stuff that I've used over the years for clear window material. some of the easiest to use is if you go to a fabric store or a Hobby Lobby, a Joann's, something like that. When you go into the fabric section, as you're walking through the store, you'll find all the what's called the bolts of fabric, where stuff is on a flat. I don't know. It's called a bolt. Anyway, it's on a flat thing and it's rolled up, and they're all nice and they're shelving and everything. You pass that. You walk right past that, and in the back they have giant rolls of like tapestry fabrics and upholstery fabrics, things like that. And back there in all those rolls, somewhere you will find clear vinyl sheeting on a roll. What I always equate it to is, remember when you were a kid and maybe it still happens, but anyway, you go to a potluck at a church or a community center, and all the tables are covered in this heavy, clear plastic. Well, that's pretty much what this is right here. Now, let's say that you're kind of rural and you don't have a nice fancy craft shop or fabric shop to go to. It happened to me a lot when I was in the military and I was stationed other places that didn't have stores like that. Then I would go and buy me a nice, clear, heavy-duty shower curtain. Same material, okay? Heavy-duty shower curtain. And I'd cut me little squares out. I mean, the shower curtain would last me 10 years because I don't make a ton of windowed things. We did our Ask Away Monday video this past week on putting clear windows in wallets and stuff like that. You could take any one of our wallets and add a clear window to the pattern. And that was what that video was all about. We built one this exact same way. But anyway, you could add one to anything you wanted. All right, now, I need to find the template for this piece. Here it is. All right, there is a light line drawn right here, okay? And what that is for is that's going to be our fold line. We want the top of this window to fold over, because when it's all said and done, I want it to fold down over the edge of that plastic so that when you put an ID inside behind this, it won't catch that plastic and rip it out or whatever. I mean, it just slides smoothly in because that thing covers the plastic. So what we're doing here is I've got a very light line scribed in the template here, and we're going to do just like we did when we measured the credit card lines a while ago. We're going to put the template on it. We'll just make a little mark where that line is. And that line basically bisects that top piece up there, that top portion. So you'll know where to fold it in half. Now, if you're really good at skiving and stuff like that, you can easily skive this piece down. If you're not great at skiving, or you're kind of mediocre at skiving or whatever, you should at least attempt to skive down the little corner areas, okay? Because when this is folded down, when it's sewn to another piece, that little corner will make a lot of difference in how the edge of your project, final project, looks. So if you could just skive off that little corner right there, it really would help the finished project. Let me grab my skiving knife here. This one's not mine. This is one that got dropped on the floor and damaged. Let me grab my skiving knife. Okay. And I'm just going to run it along, and I'm just going to skive down those little corners. Just a little, not a lot. And again, it's going to help my finished appearance on the edge of my project. All right. So, got that done. We have our line, our little tick marks made, and we can just go ahead and draw a line across. That way it's easier to visualize. Recently I had some students in here, and one of them said she was a visual learner. So, I put everything very visual. So anyway, what we now need to do is cut us some double-sided tape. This is where my trash gets in the way. We need basically to frame this little area with double-sided tape. It doesn't have to be completely all the way around it. Whatever, we are going to sew this in as well. I have not experimented with not sewing one, but honestly, this tape is really, really good, and I could see where it would probably work just fine not to sew the window in if you did a good job taping it in. But on this video, we are going to sew it in. I enjoy stitching, and so we're going to do it. Okay, and I am getting this tape right up against the insides of the window area, okay, because I don't want the tape visible on the outside of the project when it's all sewn together. So I'm just getting it right up there, and that way it's not in that outside stitch line for the finished project. Okay, now I need to make sure that when I lay this plastic across here that it goes all the way up to that line up there so that the fold over protects the top of it. All right, so I'm going to remove the paper from the back of these. I'm going to take right now this is just rough cut. It's not the exact size of this or anything. It's basically larger than the entire piece is what I want. I'm going to lay one edge of it straight up against that line. Then I'm just going to lay this whole thing down flat and just press it on the edges. Don't push down in the middle or you'll create a bubble. You just want to press down the outside edges. Okay, so now we have a clear window. So what we have to do now is I'm going to work my fold down here to fold down this top piece. All right, and then I'm going to double-sided tape that thing down so that when I sew, it's down in its place. Now, one thing I want to make sure of is, if I drew that line right and I followed that line right, then you won't be able to see the fold over on the inside. Okay, I don't want to see the back side of the fold over on the inside of the picture window because that's just ugly. We don't like ugly, we like awesome. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around. Flip it over to the finished side here. And you know what I should do? I'm sorry, I should have said this before. Should have done this before. Is I need to clip the top of the clear ID window where it is going to go under there. Okay. So that when I sew this top part down, it's not sticking out from the side of the top part there. Okay. My bad. I should have done that beforehand. All right. Now, I will take my wing dividers and I'm going to scribe me a little stitch line all the way around that area, closer to the inside window than the outside, because there's still going to be a stitch line that goes along the outside. Okay, so let me find my wing dividers. There they are. They're still holding my leather down. I need my smaller wing dividers for this one. Okay, so I'm going to take my wing dividers and I'm just going to run them along the inside of the window, just setting this stitch line maybe 1/8 of an inch in. Being very careful on the corners to follow the line nicely. Now at the top, I'm going to expand my line just a little bit. I'm going to extend it because I'm only going to do one sew line up here to hold that top part down. I'm not going to do one and then another like the rest of it will have for the final assembly. So I extended it just a little bit, maybe 3/16, not quite a quarter of an inch. And then I'll bring it down and make it match back up with the original lines. All right, so now I'm going to take my pricking irons and we're going to punch all those holes for that. Okay, I'll punch a couple of them on camera, but then I'm going to pause the camera so that this doesn't become a ridiculously long video. And yeah. All right, these are 8 stitches per inch. Anybody that's watched my videos on small projects like this is my preferred amount of stitches per inch with the 0.8 millimeter thread. I'll put that sucker up on my line there. Give it a whack. I say this on every video. I understand that these are pricking irons. Therefore, they are meant to just mark your leather and not necessarily sew or punch all the way through. But this is 2 ounces of leather. I mean, you almost would have a hard time not going all the way through it. So I'm going through it. Of course, that's also my excuse when I get to about 6 ounces of leather here later on. All right, now I am down here in a corner. All right, so I'm going to switch from my 8-prong over to my 2-prong and go around that corner there. And then I will continue on. Okay, and again, I'm going to pause the video and I'll go all the way around my project here doing this. And then I'm going to go ahead and hand stitch this thing together, just like I would hand stitch any other project. When we come back, I will have this small window area stitched out. We will do a little bit of a demo on hand stitching here in a few minutes on the video when we do our final assembly, but not going to do it just yet. All right, I got that sewn on there. Looks pretty good. Oh, let's get it. Trying to get the focus, sorry. Anyway, got it on there. But while I was doing it, I kind of did some thinking and everything, and honestly, I think every one of them I make from here on out, I'm not going to sew that piece in there. I'm going to use that double-sided tape that I already know is extremely reliable. And, yeah, and then we won't have this stitch line that goes all the way around, but we will still have one across the top here that helps to keep the fold over down. And, sorry, the dog's going stupid over there. Helps to keep the fold over down, and then also, again, it covers up the top part of the plastic so that when you put a card in there, it's not going to catch it. If you're having problems like I am right now of like this thing being real staticky and all the dust and everything collecting to it, get you like a dryer sheet and wipe on it, and that'll take all that static away, and then you won't have that problem. Because once we sew this thing together, any of that dust collected and that's on the inside of this piece of plastic is going to be very difficult to wipe out of there. All right, so now I'm going to take, thought about my scissors, but what I'm going to take is my scalpel here. And I'm going to very carefully cut this thing, the plastic part, and I'm just going to cut it right along the edge of the tape and pull the excess of it off. Again, I'm doing it extremely carefully because I don't want to cut my, my leather at all. All right. That piece is finished. Now we are already on to final assembly of this project. So here we go. So we have three main pieces. Here's the middle piece. Here is the card pocket. And here's the ID window pocket. The first thing I'm going to do is the middle piece and the card ID window, they should line up. They're the exact same size. So they should line up really well, and I'm going to glue them together, but just around the four sides. I'm not going to put glue all over it because you risk gluing your pockets shut if you do that. So I'm just going to put glue around all four sides, and I'm going to stick those together real carefully. When I'm done with that, I'm going to glue, not to the card pockets, I will glue this piece down to the front, and then we're just going to sew all the way around it after we trim our corners nice and round. Okay? Real simple. Like I said, this is not a difficult project. The hardest part really is cutting out the hole for the ID window and getting it nice and straight, but with just a little bit of practice, it'll be fine. This is our contact cement that I'm using to glue this with. Yeah. I'm just going to go all the way around, just the last quarter inch, maybe 3/16 of an inch, all the way around both this piece and the back of the card pocket there, just on the edges. Got that piece. Now for the other. My Peter Main showed us a neat little trick with the glue jars here. My glue brush, I have taken and trimmed it off a little bit so that it's not just going nuts with glue. And it really does help you to more accurately place the glue just on the edges or, in small areas and things like that. Meanwhile, there's still enough glue jar here that I could just slather it, or a glue brush here to just slather it anywhere. So yesterday we were lucky enough, old Don Gonzalez mentioned one of our glue jars on his Instagram feed, and anytime he does that, I usually gain a lot more Instagram followers and sell out of whatever product he just bragged on for us. So we always appreciate that. And anyway, it's funny because we don't sponsor Don. Don doesn't sponsor us. We're just friends, and he likes some of our products, so he talks about them. So I'm going to let that set up for just a second, and then I'm going to stick it together. It's pretty much ready to be stuck together, I guess. It's already trying to stick to itself. So anyway, let's go ahead and stick it together. There's no top or bottom to this middle piece. It's just a rectangular piece of leather. Not good. So I'm going to just kind of start with the corner and two sides here and line them up as perfectly as I can. Pinch them together, and then I'll scoot over here to the next side and do the same thing. And I usually will do like the corners and get them nice and aligned and straight, and then I'll press everything down together because this glue is this contact cement is not very forgiving. Once it's together, you can have a real difficult time trying to get it back apart. And that is a great and a bad thing about it. All right. So there we go. I glued those two pieces together. Now we're going to take and glue this piece to this side right here. All right. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it up here. I'm going to take my fingernail, and just under where it stops, I'm going to just mark it with my fingernail so I know where to stop putting glue. I don't want to put glue all the way up the project when this thing doesn't go all the way up the project. I'm also going to dab where I skive these corners down. It's not sewn down yet, so I'm going to dab some glue on there, and that way I can pinch those down, and it'll help me have a better sew line and better finished edge. So I probably should have done that before I folded it over, but hindsight is indeed 20/20. All right. Now, I'm only going to glue 3 sides of this because, of course, I'm not trying to glue the top shut. Then I can't get a card in it. So don't get in a hurry and do that. Not good. I'm also trying not to get any glue on my plastic piece. If I do, I'm going to wipe it off because, well, we don't want something sticky on the inside of this thing. All right, so I got glue all over the inside of that. Now I'm going to get glue all over the inside of this, or on the back side of this, I mean. And again, I'm going to just keep it as close to the edge as I can. And I'm going to start right there where my little fingernail mark is because I don't want the glue. Oh, pay very close attention. Don't accidentally do this with your credit card slots upside down. I almost did that on my practice one. It would have been terrible. All right, we're going to put the glue away for a little while. I think we're probably done with it for this project. And on this one, I'm going to start at the bottom and glue my corners together and work my way up. Oh, I do need to press those little pieces down there that I put together. So I did that. Press my sides down nicely. The better this is all glued together, then the better those edges are going to look when this whole project is complete. All right. So there it is. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that little blue string. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round off these corners, and that way I can figure out my stitch line and everything, okay? So I'll just put my template back up here, and I'll get to cutting. Let me use the one that's not as, there we go. All right. So I've watched a lot of other videos and learned over the years and stuff, and the best way for me to round that corner is not to try to actually cut a round circle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do several straight slices at different angles to get it all the way down, and then when I do my sanding and my edge beveling and everything, that's going to take care of that problem. All right. All right, give me just a second. I'll be right back with you. All right, sorry about that. Somebody walked in the back door and needed something right quick. So I before I turned the camera off, I did a couple of cuts on this corner and got it out of the way. Now I'm going to do this corner here. All right. And then we'll do the top corners. All right, now we have rounded corners. That's going to help us get our stitch line. And then when we do our final sanding and edging and everything, we'll get a better, you know, a more accurate round and all that on those. Okay. So once again, I'm going to take my wing dividers and I'm going to put me a stitch line all the way around the completed project here. Maybe a little bit less. Phone's ringing, folks. Be back with you in a second. All right, sorry about that. Some folks like to call their orders in, and we try to accommodate. So we're going to draw our stitch line, being very careful around the corners to keep it as even as possible. And when it comes to this little hump right here for the where it drops down, I'm just going to go right across it. All right, so we have a stitch line going all the way around. Once again, we'll pick up our pricking irons here, and we're going to go and sew this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start just underneath that that drop off there, and then I'll pick it up on the other side, and that way we're not accidentally cutting the edge of that rolled edge there, and it'll look a lot better when it's all said and done. So not much secret to this. Going around it with the irons, and yeah, trying to hold my pricking iron as straight up and down as possible, because on the back side the stitches need to be just as straight as they are on the front side. Okay, I got to a corner here, so I'm going to put down my 8-prong, grab my 2-prong, and keep on a-trucking. Okay, I'm going to continue punching these holes all the way around, and I'll pause the video again, and then when we come back, we'll do a few stitches together, just so that, you know, anybody that hadn't seen one of our videos where we're stitching stuff can see that without having to refer to a different video. And then I will continue stitching this thing up, and when we come back, we'll finalize the project. All right, real quick, real important here. Again, I'm going to use a Chicago screw to attach my little bitty D-ring on the top. I'm looking for my example that I already made here. There it is. But if I were going to stitch that little piece on there, then I would need to stitch it along with this line. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I'm just going to do that. So let's cut out a little piece for that, and we'll stitch it on there with this, and it'll be nice. We'll just do it that way because I already did one this way, so I'll have a different example. All right, so here I have the exact same leather I used to make the rest of this project, and the little D-ring I've got on here, I got this at Joann's Fabrics. In their sewing section, they've got lots of little stuff like this, and there actually is a little matching clip that goes with it that when we make our lanyard video, we'll be using the clip. Anyway, this thing is probably a 1/2 inch wide. Right at a 1/2 inch wide. So that means we need to cut that's the inside diameter. So that means we need to cut a little strip of leather that's a 1/2 inch wide. So we'll go ahead and do that right quick. I'm just going to cut me off a little scrap of this so that I can get the big piece out of my way. Now, this is another chance where my handy dandy little ruler comes in. These, whoops, excuse me, I got customers walking in. Let me pause this. All right, sorry about that. I had some new customers come in, and they needed a little orientation to the place. So what I'm doing is our ruler has an 1/8 of an inch grid on it. So to cut me a little 1/2 inch wide piece, I'm just going to line it up with the 1/2 inch mark on that grid and cut down it. Just like that. All righty. So I need to place this on here and put my stitch holes through it. But to do that, I'll have to go out there and grab me another one of these little D-rings. And I should have done that before I turned the camera back on. But by now, if you've watched my videos, you are very used to me having to stop it to grab things I forget. So, actually, had a friend the other day on our Monday night video that mentioned that he wants to start a drinking game. And every time Aaron has to say that he forgot to get a tool or something, he's going to take a drink. And I told him, well, he's going to be really drunk by the end of the video. So, anyway, be right back. Okay, so I went and got my little D-ring out of my little stash in the back there. I also went ahead and just sanded the very top of this right quick because we're going to burnish it before we sew our piece onto it. That way, you know, it's not unburnished right there. So I sanded it. Now I'm going to use my number 2 Montana Edger from Ron's Tools. And put a little bit of a rounded edge on there, and then also this thing I need to kind of figure out a length on it and get it ready. It really isn't a very long piece at all. Looks like it's going to be about 1.25 inches. Okay, and that's going to be just enough room that we can put our D-ring on it, and then we can glue it with the contact cement right there in the middle, and we'll sew right through it when we go to sew around it. But just like the other piece, I need to edge it. So I'll get back on my number 1 Montana Edger here and edge it up real nice. So we're going to burnish all 4 sides of this tiny little piece, and then we're just going to burnish the very top of our project piece here. And that way, when this is all sewn together, all those edges will have already been burnished, and it won't have any spots that didn't get it. So again, like I always say, every little bitty detail that we can do and make professional, make it look professional, then that's all going to add up to a finished project that's going to look amazing. So again, this is a real thin leather, so I'm just going to burnish it enough to kind of take care of some loose fibers. And yeah. All right. So I need to get a little bit of contact cement on these 2 pieces here. I need to find the center of this piece and mark it. And that's real easy to do because I put that little hole on the template right in the center. So we can just lay the template up there and we'll mark it with a stylus and we'll know exactly where our center is as soon as we find our stylus. I'll just use this little hole punch here if it fits. I'm not punching a hole, I'm just marking a spot. I thought I was. Let me get my stylus. All right, now I've got a little spot where we know the center is. Okay. We have our little bitty piece. We have our glue. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the front and the back of the main body here, and a little bit of glue on the inside of the piece. And I just need to temporarily get it on there while we get ready to sew. That's all I need to do. Sorry, I know I'm terrible about staying in the view of the camera here. All right. And then we're just going to squeeze this sucker on here right there in the middle. Making sure that the front and the back line up pretty good. And there it is. It's on there. Now, we'll go back to our pricking irons and we'll go ahead and puncture our holes right through that and continue on with our stitching. Sorry, something got stuck on the back of this. I don't know what it is. Usually my magic eraser is somewhere around here. I don't see it. I'm going to pause this right quick, find my magic eraser and get this little rubbery spot off here. I don't know what it is. It might be rolled up glue. Okay, my little eraser was hiding behind my coffee cup. It always stays pretty close at the end. I'm not really sure where I got this, but it's basically like a little hard piece of gum rubber, I guess. And when I say it erases things, it's not like a pencil eraser where pieces of it really flake off, but it seems to just rub things off the leather without marring up the leather, so I use it pretty often. All right, back to poking our holes. As usual, my workspace continues to get smaller and smaller as I work because I have tools everywhere. It's just part of me being me. All right, so what I'm trying to do is line this up, but just like the top of this, I don't want it to cut through the very edge of these little pieces of leather. So what I'm going to do is take my little two-prong and line it up so that it does not. All right, I've now gone all the way around. Again, I started and stopped just where the holes aren't puncturing the fold over there, and worked out. So I'm going to grab my stitching horse here and chuck it up in my stitching horse. And it doesn't really matter where I start and stop my stitch, but one of my rules I have is I don't start or stop a stitch in a corner because that's a high wear. It'd be nice if you could see it. Sorry. I don't start or stop my stitch on a corner because that's a high wear spot. Plenty of people do, and I'm sure it's just fine, but it's just one of my things. All right, so I'm going to pull me some thread out here. This is our brand of hand sewing thread. It's really nice stuff. It's flat, it's waxed, it's braided. We sell it in 0.8 millimeter and 1.0 millimeter sizes. This is the 0.8. It's what I use on all my wallets and things like that. Great thread, and we have a pretty reasonable price on it. So anyway, grab my needles here and thread them up, and then like I said, we'll do a couple of stitches together, and then I'll pause the video while I finish hand stitching, so you don't have to watch the whole daggum thing. All right, so I'm just going to kind of start right here in the middle. Take and pull my threads even through that first hole, and then I'll start working my way up. I always go through the front side first and pull it snug, come through the back side, pull it nice and tight, and it's going to create a very attractive stitch. And as long as you do it the exact same way every single stitch, it'll be very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It'll be the exact same every single time. I don't know why I can't think of the word. But anyway. All right. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to finish stitching this thing up over the next 15 minutes. And then I will unpause it and we'll complete this, this part of the project. Then we can start on the lanyard. All right, just got finished stitching this up, and I just wanted to show a real quick little tidbit on trimming your excess string when you're done. I've shown before one of the methods I do it, which is taking a scalpel or a very, very sharp blade, and you just lay it up there beside the thread, and then you rub the thread back and forth against the blade. And what happens there is then you cut it off right even with the leather and everything, but you don't accidentally like cut a stitch or cut your leather or something like that. Another method that I do a lot when when I've just got one handy or whatever is I'll take a really good edge beveler that's nice and sharp, and I'll put it up there, and I'll do the exact same thing. Pull it off, and there you go. That sucker's gone. Anyway, just a little tip from my bench to yours. But here it is, all nice and sewn up and everything. I'm going to go and I'm going to sand all these edges down and everything. We'll do the final burnishing, and this one is done. Give me a minute. All right, sanded up the edges real nice and smooth and everything, and I've got a Montana Edger number 3 here. I'm just going to run it around and round off my edges. Or edges, and we'll burnish them while we talk a little bit about a couple of different things here. Like I said, we could easily punch a hole and use a Chicago screw for that piece right there in the middle. You don't have to put the D-ring on this part. You could put a little clip on it so that people could clip it to something else or to a belt loop or something like that. I am putting the clip on the lanyard end because I want the lanyard to have the heft. It's not going to be heavy by any means, but I want it to have the heft of that clip holding it down, because being braided leather, it's going to need a little something to hold it down to where it's not all flopping around if it doesn't have this attached to it. That being said, I need to resand that little bit right there, apparently. Anyway, we're going to stop this video here. This is where we're at. There's the completed project right there. We'll get some light on it. There we go. Too much. There's the completed project right there. Built to last for years. Once it's got these these edges are nice and burnished, it's going to be gorgeous. There'll be a picture as the thumbnail for the video and everything. So thanks so much for watching. Again, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply. This template is available at makersleathersupply.com. And thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.